Hello everyone, welcome back. So we're gonna continue with our lesson 1 lecture. So where we left was we finished up the exercise 1.1 to 1.7, and now what we need to do is we need to do lesson 2. So as I mentioned earlier in my previous lecture is when you're jumping from one chapter to another, you continue from where you left. Okay, so this is something that you're gonna have to make sure that you understand how this software works. Okay, think about it that you have a word file that you finished typing one lesson and you want to start typing your lesson 2. So when you start lesson 2 notes or the work that you need to do for lesson 2, you open lesson 1 and then you continue typing the information from where you left. So if you're working on the software that's installed on your computer, you go into the all program, click on Sage 300, and you open Omni Electronics, and you put the session date 01/01/2021, and you go in and you start from where you left. So you completed exercise 1.7. Now when you're starting lesson 2, you start from lesson 2.1. Okay, it's very simple if you're working from the software that's installed on your computer. Now if you're working on the file on your app stream, you need the work to complete that is completed up to lesson 1 to start lesson 2. Okay, so now if you say, you know what, okay, I'm going to use the app stream, which is not a bad option, but you have a few extra steps that you need to complete. So you need to click on the School of Business, and you click here. It's going to ask me to redirect to the session, so I enter the login information. So you're starting a new session because you are starting this file again. Now I click on Sage 300 again. It will take few minutes, maybe like 30 to 45 seconds. So now what is going to happen here is if I start the app stream and I use the same process I used in lesson 1, I'm going to be starting from exercise 1.3 again. Okay, and I do not want to do that every time. Okay, so therefore what do I need to do to only start with exercise 2.1? If I want to start with exercise 2.1, I need a company file that has everything complete up to exercise 1.7 from chapter 1. And how can I do that? So what's going to happen is on your Blackboard, every week I'm going to give you the database files. So if you go into your Blackboard and you go under your week 1, what you will see there is, I'll go into week 1, you see that Omni database files, end of lesson 1. So I'm giving you end of lesson 1 database file, and this is zipped. Okay, so this file can be used to upload into the app stream, so you can use this and do a database load. Once you load the file, your file is ready, and then you start Omni Electronics, and then you start from exercise 2.1. Okay, so there's some extra steps that you have to do to start with lesson 2 if you're using the app stream. Okay, so now just make sure that you write down these steps. Okay, so when you're starting a new chapter and you're planning of using an app stream, what you have to do is you need a file which is end of lesson from last lesson. Okay, so if I'm starting lesson 3, you need end of lesson 2. Okay, if you're starting lesson 2, you need end of lesson 1. Okay, so what you need here is you come right here, you need to go onto a Blackboard and download end of lesson 1. So you click on that, this file is downloaded on your download folder. Now what you need to do is you need to take this file into your app stream. So you go into your app stream right here, and you go into the temporary folders. In temporary folders, you're going to say upload the files. So you click on upload files, you go into the download, and you click on end of lesson 1. So now this file is here. So this is step number 1, is to take the file from the blackboard and put it into your temporary files. Once this is done, now this is a zipped file, you need to unzip it. So the second step that you have is you're going to unzip the file. Now to unzip, we need to use this software. So you go into the software, click on temporary files, end of lesson 1, and now instead of plus, you're going to do minus to extract the file. You click on that minus and you're going to say, okay, extract it. Say, where do you want to extract? You want to extract at the same place. Press OK. Now your backup file is, your end of lesson 1 is extracted. So step 1 is upload the file, step 2 is unzip, and step 3 is the database load. Okay, so now you click on the database load and it's going to ask you the password. You enter the password is admin, press OK. Now you click on set directory. Okay, now when you click on set directory, what you're trying to do is you need to find out where is your backup sitting. Okay, so you click on the browse and find that folder, end of lesson 1. So you always have to click on the arrow to make sure that you look at the parent folder. So the parent folder is the one where you have both of these folders, which is this one right here. Okay, so now you click on that and you know that there are two databases in there, OmniData and OmniSys. You press OK, you press OK again, and it will find the files that are sitting in that folder. Now what you want to do is you want to dump all the work sitting in that folder into Omni Electronics. So you click on the OmniDat, say everything that's sitting in this file you want to dump into OmniDat. Press next, press next. And then you're going to do the same thing with OmniSys. Say everything in OmniSys you want to dump it into the OmniSys in the software. Once this is linked, so it's going to take all the information from here and put it into the company database and click finish. Once you click finish, it's disappeared. That means everything that you had is linked and is dumped into those OmniData and OmniSys file, and we click cancel. So now we're ready. Okay, that OmniData and OmniSys file that we have in stage 300 is ready to start exercise 2.1. Now if you were working on your computer which have completed everything from exercise 1.7, you can simply go into stage 300 and click on OmniDat and put the session date 01/01/2021. Press OK, and there you go. So your file is ready. So this file has everything that you have completed up to exercise 1.7. Okay, so now you're ready to start exercise 2.1. If you don't see this, you see the same message that you got in exercise 1.3. That means you're not able to successfully do a database load. And the most common mistake I see students doing is they will do a database dump, database load into OmniDat, but when it comes here, they will pick up another company. Okay, you want to make sure that you are into OmniDat. Now, the very first thing that you want to do is you want to change the company name to have your name on it. So you go into company services, company profile, and put your name beside that. So that way, if you print the reports, it will have your name on it. Save and close. Okay. So what we're going to do in lesson 2 is we're going to do a GL setup, general ledger setup. Okay. So right now what you see there is we have admin services, common services. Those are the only informations we have. Now what we're going to do is exercise 2.1, we're going to activate GL module. To do a database activation, you go to admin services, click on data activation and proceed. And we're going to click on the journal ledger. Okay, and then we're going to press next. And we're going to say next again. And I say you want to activate, we're going to say proceed. And now the status has been changed from pending to activate and close. Now the journal ledger comes right here. Okay. So once the activation is done, you see the general ledger module is sitting there for you. Okay, now you click on this arrow sign and you see that there are different options that you have in the journal ledger. So in this lecture, lesson 2, we are focused on the GL setup. Now before I go into the GL setup, what I want you to see is I want you to see the fiscal year for the company. Okay, so if you go into the fiscal calendar, and where was the fiscal calendar? In common services. And now see that last time when we were trying to click on it, we didn't see anything, but right now because we have the general ledger, it shows that these are the fiscal years. But you see that there is a log column, that means they are still logged. Okay, it is there but it is locked, that means we still cannot do the entries, and I'll tell you guys later what is mean that they are locked. Okay, but you know that there is data and there's a fiscal years available now. So now we're gonna do is we're gonna focus on the GL setups. Okay, so again, it's important for you guys to do these exercises step by step. Okay, I'm there to guide you guys through the process, but again, we don't have that much of time that I can go through each exercise and explain you every single step. You need to go to your textbook, make sure you read and do the things that the book asks you to do. Okay, but I'm here for you to give you a guideline to see what each of these steps mean and why we do that and why is it important for you to do this in a practical environment as well. Okay, so now the easy way to remember is the way this is set up. The first thing that you want to do is you want to do a GL setup. Once the GL setup is done, you're not going to come back to this. This is usually done at the very beginning once you're setting up the general ledger module. So we're going to start with the options. Okay, so when you come into the option, you see the company name, address, the name, the phone number, and everything is here. Then you come to the accounts. Okay, now the most important thing that you see there is a default closing account. Now you guys are an accountant. You know that the accounting cycle goes on a periodic basis. So once the fiscal year end is done, everything gets closed. All the temporary account revenue and expenses are getting closed. So it gets closed to a one account, and that's called retained earning account. Okay, so here you have to tell the system what is that retained earning account that the closing entry has to be completed. Right now we can't do that because we don't have any accounts set up yet. Once we have the accounts ready, and this is where you're going to come back to set up the default closing account. Then comes to the postings. So you guys see that this is, if you see the current fiscal year right now is 2020. So that means that even though we have 2021, but the company is not ready, the general ledger is not ready to post a transaction for 2021 because it's still sitting in 2020. And here is the default source code. Now something important for you guys to know, in Sage 300, every time you record a transaction you need to select a source code. Now the source code helps you to identify the type of transactions. So here it says, do you want a default source code, which is the journal entries. Okay, every time you record a transaction it goes to GE. How many years of information you want to save? Usually CRA requires you to keep 6-year information. So I mean 6 year of previous information, one is the current year. We will leave 7 years of transaction detail into the company file. Then we go into the segments. Now this is an important piece. Okay, you know that you have done Sage 50 course. In Sage 50, when we create accounts, we simply put the account numbers. Now in Sage 300, these account numbers are divided into different segments. Okay, and each segment represent something. Okay, so if you see that here, you have 10 different segments that you can create. Okay, so out of these 10 segments, one of that account segment is definitely going to be your account number. Okay, and then you can use the other segments to identify the other codes that you wanted to link to these depending on how big is the company, you can have different segments represent different things. Okay, for example, think about it. I have a company that's only one company, but I have 6 different locations. Okay, and I identify each locations by a certain code. Okay, so what I can do is I can use segment number 2 as a code for the location. Okay, and now I also have different countries that I have location with, that I can create a segment 3 to identify the countries. So I say 01 represent Canada, 02 represent US, Canada 3 represent uh, Italy, whatever it is, we will identify that with the codes. Okay, so you can have as many segment that you wanted to use, but that will make complications into the file, and Sage 300 is made for that, so that way it's not only made for small companies, it's made for medium to large size companies as well. Okay, so but the more segment codes you're going to have, the bigger the account number is going to be for your transactions. Now for this course, we only going to be using 2 segments. Even for your assignments and your exam and the test, we only going to use 2 segments. Okay, and one of that segment is always going to be account. So say segment number 1 is going to be accounts, and then here you have to mention the length of those accounts. Say how big you want the accounts to be, 4 digits. Then we're going to have segment 2. Now segment 2 could be anything. Okay, so this company Omni Electronic have 2 divisions. One is electrical division, another one is a machinery division. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to identify the segment 2 as division, and then when you wanted to put a division, you have to identify how big is the division number going to be. 2 digit, 3 digit, 5 digit, whatever you want to do, you have to identify it here. Okay, we're gonna say, you know what, we're gonna use the division for a 3 digit. Okay, so that means anytime I have to identify a division, you have to give a 3 digit. Okay, so in this company we have 2 divisions, machinery and electronic. So when I put a number to that division, I have to have at least 3 digits. Okay, now anything other than account, you have to define that in the next step. Okay, so you can have more division segments if you want to, but we're only going to use 2. Then you come at the bottom. Now this is an important piece. So we have 10 segments, and from there, which one is your account number? You need to identify it and tell the system. And say we're gonna say, okay, the first one is the one that has an account number. So you have to be very careful that once you select this information, you cannot come back and change it. So you're gonna have to make sure that this is selected correctly. So I said, okay, this is the one that's 1. And once I click save, you see that this one right now it's in white. That means you can change it. But once I click save, it will gray out. Save, see, it cannot change. And right after that, you have a default structure code. That means you can select the default structure code if you want to, but we don't have the structure code defined yet, so we have to come back to it and save that later. Okay, done. You finish with the setup, you close it. Okay. So once you set up the options, the next thing that you want to do is you want to define the segment codes. So then you come into the segment codes. Okay, see, accounts you don't need to define because each account is going to have its name and the account number, but the division has to be defined. Okay, so how many divisions we have? So in this company we have 2 divisions, electrical and machinery. So here you have to define which one is electrical and which one is the machinery division. So you have to put a number, and remember you said 3 digits, so it has to be 3 digit long. So it's 100, and we're going to call this is electrical, and then 200 is machinery division, and we click save. So that's how you would do in the exam or the test as well. You given the name of those of that segment, you identify the codes, their numbers, and then you also identify the names. And after you set up the segment codes, the next part that you want to do is you want to set up the account structure. Okay, so remember you said there are 4 different segments, 2 different segments we have, And now when you create an account, you have to identify which one is only an account, which was an account for a particular division. Okay, so we said we want to have two different account structure. One that will only is the account. So we're going to say accounts only. Okay, for that we only want the account. So every time I create an account, for example bank account, and I only need 4 digit, and that represent the account. Okay, and I click add. Then I'm going to create another one. I will call this div, and that one we're going to call this account and division. And for that, what I want is, I want to have a count number, which is the 4 digit, followed by the 3 number, which is the division. So that means if I create a sales account for electrical division, I have to put a 4 digit for the sales account, which is for example 4000, and then dash the division number. If it's for electrical, we put 100. If it's machinery, we put 200 at the end. Okay, so that's how you will define the account structure. So we have ACC. I actually typed in ACCT, but actually in your book is actually only ACC. So when you create this, you want to make sure you only do ACC, not. So let me see if I can delete this. Now I can create ACC, and I call this account, and I remove the division, and I said I want this to be used as a default, and I click save. So now if you click on this finder, you see ACC and div. Okay, and I close it. So you do the segment codes, then you define the account structure, and then you have source codes. Okay, so remember what I said to you guys previously, that source codes are used to identify the type of transaction. So here if you click on the finder, you see that there are source codes that already exist. That is closing entry, consolidated, journal entry, reallocation, reevaluation. And now what you want to do is you want to create some additional codes. And now for that you just type in the code number GLCD, and that represent cash disbursement, and I click add, and now you keep adding that. CR represent cash receipts, and click add, and then GL PR represent cash, sorry, it's payroll, click add, and then we have PU represent purchases, add, and then we have SA represent sales, add, and then we have the last one is the SU, which represent setup. Okay, so you create all those segments, and once that part is done, you create the source journal profile. So source journal profile is usually used to group different codes that you wanted to group them together, right? For example, I wanted to group certain transaction and use them for bank reconciliation. Okay, so for bank reconciliation, I know that I need the disbursement, and this is something important for you guys to know. Anytime you cannot move into the next line, you press the insert button from your keyboard, move to the next line. Cash disbursement, cash receipt, again press insert to go to the next line, and then cash receipt, and the next one I want to add is a payroll, and click add. So you create a profile that will combine the transactions from those different groups. Then we have groups, GL groups, that's already created by default, so you don't have to worry about doing anything. Remember, in simply counting a sage 50, you were creating the headings, the heading total. You don't have to worry about, these are already set up for you. Okay, so for big companies, if they want the groups to be in a certain format, they can hire an IT company who can do a backend to set up the different groups and remove the one that exists. Okay, so we're not gonna use the account groups here. And recurring entry, we will come back on this later on in the course. And so this is pretty much what we need to cover up in this chapter from the GL setup part. Now, everything that you have done here, you want to make sure you know how to print them. Because if you're doing this in the test environment on the assignment, you want to make sure that you can print these reports. Okay. So now before I go into the reports, you want to make sure that your print destination is set up for a review for a print preview. So before you go into the reports, you're going to click on the print destination and change this to preview, and you want the paper size, orientation, and you want to use the A4 size. Okay, and press OK. Now you're ready to start printing these reports. So now to print any reports, you need to go into the GL reports. Okay. Now if I ask you to print any of those reports, you can click on these icons that are available here. So if I say I want you to print me the segment codes, so you come into the reports, click on segment codes, and say I want to print all the segment codes, click print, and these are your segment codes. Now you wanted to save it. Now we are working from home. You don't have to access to the printer. You don't need to send this to a printer. You can simply save that into a PDF. So you can click on this icon right here, say export report, and it's going to say you want to do a PDF. You're going to say press OK and press OK again. Then it's going to ask you a location. So if you're working on your PC, that software that's installed on your PC, you select the C drive. Okay, so you select the C drive, and maybe what you can do is you can create a folder here and call this reports. Okay, and you save all the reports in this folder. But if you're working on your on the app stream, you don't have no place but to save this on a temporary file. So here we are, call this OMN because I want to identify its omni, and I will call this is segment codes, and I save. Okay, and I will close it, and I close this one. Then I say, can you also print me the account structure? So you go into the account structure and do the same thing, print, and you see a preview. And now you will do is export report, press OK, and press OK again. And this one we're gonna say OMN, and the report we have is account structure. Save. Okay, so we close it, and then if you want to close this, we can close that. So you know what, I want to also print the source codes. So I click on source codes, click print. These are different source codes. I will export this and press OK and OK again, and I will name this OMN source codes. Okay, see there, like now every report that I'm doing, it's showing up my name here because I changed the company name at the very beginning. So you want to do that as well. Okay, so you can keep printing all these reports the way that I did. Okay, now be careful with that. If you're working on the app stream, those files are sitting on your temporary file. So what you want to do is, as soon as you finish printing the reports, you want to click on that and say download. Click on the second one, say download. Click on the third one, click download. Okay, now you can go into the folder. You see that all these reports are sitting in your download. You cut it and go into your C drive, go into this reports and paste it here. So now it's on your PC, so that means something happens, you have your reports. Okay, so now I can close this one. Now you finish lesson 2. Now you finish the lesson 2, but before you close it, you want to make sure you do a database dump. Now to do a database dump, I'm going to repeat these steps again. So first thing that you want to do is, so now depending on what you guys are doing, you will have a better understanding in the next week whether you're going to be working on your software on your laptop or you want to use the app stream. You will write down your own steps. Okay, so if you're working on your PC, you want to go in here into the database backup, create a folder called OMN, end of lesson 2. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to create the same folder online. So if you're working on the app stream, you come right here, you create a folder and you name it OMN end of lesson 2. Okay, so this is if you're using the app stream. So you create the folder in your temporary file. Now what you want to do is you want to do a database dump. So now you go into the admin services, you click on database dump. Now the most common mistake students make is they dump the wrong file. You don't want to do that. You want to make sure you select the omnidat, that's the one that you're working on, and browse for the folder where you want the file to be dumped in. So you want that to be dumped into end of lesson 2. Press OK and click dump. Press OK again. So now the omnidat is dumped. But the omnidat itself doesn't do anything. You need omnisys as well. So you click on omnisys and click dump again and press OK. So now omnidat and omnisys both are dumped. Okay. So once the dump is done, what you want to do is you want to zip that folder. Now to zip that, you need to go into 7-zip, go into temporary file, which file you want to do the zip. You want that to be omni ELL number 2. You click on the plus sign, you press OK. Now it zipped this folder. Now once the zip is done, what you want to do is you want to download that. So you go into my file, temporary file, find the zipped file which is right here, click on the arrow, click download. Once download is done, you go into the folder and see this is there. You cut it and put it to the folder, the one that you have the backups. So here it is. And then I don't need the folder, I delete the folder. Okay, so that's how you do the database dump. Okay, so this is it guys on my end. What you need to do is now I'm gonna leave it to you guys to complete your lesson 1 and lesson 2. Okay, so again going back to your notes, what you have to do is number 1, you install your Sage 300 and the SQL using Appendix B. Once that is done, complete lesson 1. Now lesson 1 you complete. If you are successful in installing the software, you complete lesson 1 on your file, and then continue with lesson 2, complete all the exercise from lesson 2, and then once that is done, you perform the database dump as you finish each chapter. If you are not able to successfully install the software, what you do is you start lesson 1 from 1.3 using the Amazon app stream, the one that you have, that I'll share the link with. And once you finish lesson 1, you can continue to lesson 2 right away. Then you don't need to do a database load. But if you close your computer end of lesson 1, then you want to restart that later, then you have to make sure you download the file from the Blackboard end of lesson 1, upload it on your app stream, then do a database load, then complete all the exercise 2.1 to 2.3 and print out the various reports that book asks you to do. Okay, once that is done, complete the database dump, and then you close your computer. Okay, so the 3 important things for you guys to do is install the Sage 300 in the SQL from Appendix B, and complete lesson 1 and complete lesson 2. Okay, and this is it from my end guys. So now what's going to happen next is we're going to have a class next week, which is on 18th of May. In that week, if there's any question that you have on Appendix B, on lesson 1 or lesson 2, you can send me a course message. You can post those discussions on the Blackboard under week 1. And if you want something to be discussed in class, bring those questions to the class next week. So next week we will have the first half of the class discussing any questions that you have from lesson 1 and 2, and then the second half of the class next week we will focus on the new stuff that need to be covered in week 2. Okay, take care everyone, and I will see you next. Bye bye.